Doing its day. Wow, that keeps getting faster and faster. Hey, folks, thanks for joining the BAMF podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty. And today we've got sort of a highbrow topic we're talking about with all the superhero media we've seen the last few years. And it's kind of apropos since Infinity War is coming out tomorrow here in the U.S. Does this affect gamers' expectations of what a superhero adventure should be like? And also, I mean, since we have Nick Garber here of Apogee Comics, does it affect the way you approach making comics, or maybe what readers are looking for? So you can come at it from both directions. It's not even Friday night.
Yeah, there we go. You want me to answer now, or?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me do a quick introduction to everybody. And Sean has to leave in like 20 minutes.
Okay. Sorry, folks.
Let's try to get him at the top of the hour. But anyway, Ade Smith is here. How you doing, Ade?
Hello, not too bad, thank you.
Yeah. We just touched Nick Garber, Sean Patrick Fannin, Savage Worlds, various other projects. He's here.
Games. Actually, I want to get some cool banners up like Nick's got going, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
Well, Nick is a technical genius. I'm sure he can talk you through it. And speaking of geniuses, sitting next to Sean Patrick Fannin in our palatial broadcast studio is Walt. How you doing, Walt?
Wow, genius. I like you.
All right. So, Sean, you've been creating games for most of your adult life, it seems like.
Yep.
And I know you're coming up on, you guys are going to be doing a Kickstarter for Prowlers and Paragons.
Yep.
So let's put the mic to you at first. Do you think that all the superhero media, I mean, it's been 10 years since Iron Man came out. Do you think that has changed what people are looking for?
Absolutely. Beyond any question. Beyond any question. It's how it is affected. So you guys didn't realize I started my career with Champions around the end of third and through the fourth edition era. So late 80s. Early 90s, so that's where I first started doing my professional work, was on superhero role playing, and we had certain kinds of expectations for what we were creating, what we were writing, what we were crafting, adventures, characters, all that kind of stuff, which was primarily driven by the comic book medium. You had some cartoons, but they were for the most part pretty cheesy and not well put together. You had some movies that were even more cheesy and really even more not well put together for the most part. But you had the comics, right? Graphic novels and things like that. I mean, this was a serious, of the many watershed times, and I'm sure Nick can talk about this more than I can, but there's some really interesting stuff that's coming out that was affecting the way we looked at stuff. The crisis events and things like that were still very heavily in our minds about, what you wanted to do with your own gaming development, and that's for Champions. So here I am working with Len Pimentel. Lakeside Games is partnered and merged in with Evil Beagle Games, and we're taking his original Prowls and Paragons rule set, and we're going to be doing Prowls and Paragons Ultimate Edition. That's our next big project coming up, and the way that we're approaching the rules, the way that we're approaching the content, because I'm doing two settings for it: Modern Gods and Unending War. And those two settings, I can't emphasize enough how much I am looking at the current media, the movies, the television programs, even the animated series, like the Justice League animated series and a lot of the DC animated series stuff. These are now very dramatically informing my approach to recreating the superhero experience at the game table, and to recreate superhero content for game masters and players to experience and to interface with. I absolutely find myself approaching the design and the content and the narrative that I'm creating. I'm expressing very directly in those terms. I mean, we are literally referencing those sources as we're saying this is going to be a lot like X. So when I talk about Modern Gods now, I talk about it's going to be a lot like the Justice League, Unlimited animated series meets the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I literally use those touch tones to explain what Modern Gods will be like. So there's no question it has impacted me as a creator, and I think it's impacting a lot of my fellow creators.
Do you think it's driven fans to go maybe from more crunchy systems towards more narrative systems? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I see games like we did a live play here of a City of Mist, which is powered by the Apocalypse Super game, and a lot of fun, good time, but very, very rules light. I'm just
you're going to see people who want to come to the table to play superheroes because gaming's still expanding, it's still bringing more people in constantly, but they're not going to have patience for systems that get in the way of their sense of wonder. So champions in the hero system just isn't as strong right now as it used to be. It's still an old favorite, still, you know, personal thing. I'd play it in a heartbeat, but when I run, I'm going to run something that I think is going to be a little more welcoming to the current crop of players. I think Mutants and Masterminds, unfortunately, is also going to have a little bit of a harder time in the market space as more people are coming from watching these movies and experiencing the media. They're going to come and sit at the table, and they're going to want some fun narrative experience. I still think you can get away with a game that has good crunch. I think people are going to probably find, you know, so a lot of people are going to find some fun, especially if they're playing like the Netflix series type characters. I think they're going to have fun with a Savage Supers kind of experience. And of course, we're banking on the fact that we can take a game that still lets you roll giant handfuls of dice and look at a neat character sheet and see all kinds of cool abilities with Prowls and Paragons. You know, I think we're banking on people are going to enjoy that, but it's because it's a very simple system by comparison. You roll the giant handfuls of dice, you count even, sixes count double. That's how you do everything. You can have lots and lots of powers. You can still go through and have fun, like crafting your character or stuff. So not quite as rules light as Cities of Mist, but there's a reason why you're going to see a Cities of Mist do very well. There's a reason why you're going to see the Sentinels of the Multiverse RPG is probably going to do pretty well for the same reason. Anything that's going to make it quick and easy for me to go, boom, here's the character I want to play. I want to play a character just like Captain America. I want to play a character just like T'Challa. And I want to just kind of dive in and just throw myself into the experience. Those games are going to do well with the current crop of people coming and saying, I want to play superheroes.
Fair enough, fair enough. Without going into too deeply, when are you guys launching the Kickstarter for Prowlers and Paragons?
There's just one of those things where I just do not want to set us up to miss it. We definitely want it to be done before the end of the year. We're probably going to push to a little bit later in the year, like the latter half of the year. And that's what I can say right now. We're still putting our plans and stuff together. All
right, so let's say TBD 2018. I got you.
Yeah, 2018. By the way, if I may make a cheap plug real quick, it's still possible to get on the late pledge for Freedom Squadron, which is pretty superheroic in its own right. So if you missed out on the Freedom Squadron Kickstarter and you really want to get in on that love letter to G.I. Joe and action adventure characters, we have the late pledge period going on. It's going to go on for another couple of weeks. So you want to jump in.
How does someone late pledge for Kickstarter?
Just go straight to the Kickstarter page. Same Kickstarter page as before. You'll see a big red button that says late pledge.
I didn't know that was the thing they had.
I didn't know that. That is awesome.
Yeah, kind of interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
So people can still dive in and get all the same rewards.
Okay, well, nice. Interesting trivia about G.I. Joe. When they were originally playing the cartoon way back in the day, they had pitched it as an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. cartoon. But they just couldn't make it happen with Marvel because, you know, that Marvel was crazy in those days when it comes to deal making. That's why 7 different studios. Yeah.
Marvel ends up getting the property anyway.
It all worked out fine for them anyway.
Yeah, it's all right. So Nick, since you're sitting next to Sean in our virtual studio, how do you feel about this subject as a comic book creator? Do you think all the TV and movies affects what you do, or not so much?
It definitely has an influence because it kind of gets you a little insight of, because they obviously have the money to spend on market research and fan and customer research on what they're looking for. So they do the lion's share of the hard work for indie guys like me, because all we got to do is kind of watch and see what they're doing. But as far as movies and TVs are concerned, they always influence a creator. I don't care if you're indie or working for one of the big three. You start noticing certain trends in storytelling and tone, and if it's successful, then it's going to be a few years before that changes into something else. So that gives you time to kind of, if you have something close to it, you can adapt it. If you want to create a brand new property to fit that tone and storytelling, technique, you can do that as well, So it definitely has a huge influence, I mean, you go back to like Batman '88, that turned Batman from this campy guy that we all kind of knew from the '60s, as casual fans, into this darker hero, So, and that definitely influenced a lot of things too, especially in the Batman comics. You saw a tonal jump in that as well.
He changed his costume too. He went to wearing all
black. He went back to the like a more modern version of the 1930s look with the black bat. He went with the black cape and cowl and undies. His crime fighters, as I call them.
Has it changed like any decisions you make as a comics creator at Apogee Comics? You know, pick characters you might, say, let's do this now, or let's do this, or let's not do this plot line, or let's do this plot line, that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It'll influence it. Things that'll usually sway us to make changes like that or drastic, radical changes is if the story's just a little too close to what we're already working on. I mean, obviously, I don't have access to the WB's writer's room or anything, but, some of these things just kind of happen because they're good ideas.
Yeah, there's always parallel development, yeah.
One of the things I wanted to jump in here with, because it just hit me, because I think this goes across to games and to comics. We had a period of time in the 90s where you had books where the heroes still didn't kill, and it was a key important thing that heroes don't kill. Then you had books that all the heroes kill everything, like just blood everywhere, and the Image was, of course, just absolutely known for this. One of the things I think the movies in particular have done, and the television series especially, but the movies too, let's face it, the Marvel movies, they made a pretty big deal of it with Superman in the DC stuff, but in the Marvel movies, it's just sort of, it's there, it just happens. It's pretty clear that Captain America has killed a few people, and not just during World War II. I mean, he dropped a few guys.
The Winter Soldier, he was killing fools wholesale on that boat.
Yeah, and all the other heroes are, people are clearly getting beat to absolute, like, go to the hospital forever or dead. And it just is. There was not a thing made out of it. There was not a, oh my God, that was horrific. It was just, it's war against these forces.
Right.
The Chitauri, right? The first Avengers movie, they were killing the hell out of those guys. Of course, they all dropped dead at the end anyway.
Oh, and then you had a mass casualty when Stark blows up the portal, those guys all drop dead.
So my point being, it's not even remarked on, right? It's not made gratuitous, like, oh my God, look how many dead bodies, like in Wolverine.
Right.
But at the same time, it's not remarked on at all. It's just a causal thing of modern day thinking, and that's creeping in, right? You was a big deal in writing up Champions of, code against killing is a thing, and all the characters should take it, or some GMs required that. Now you kind of got to make a thing out of whether or not characters are going to try to avoid killing, because for the most part, it's considered an acceptable situation for modern day.
Well, I think it's all dependent on the context of, one, the situation, the occupation of the hero, because superheroes just aren't, especially now, they're not just superheroes like back in the day where I'm a costume adventurer. You got guys that are ex-soldiers, and I'll go to my character, Phantom Hawk, where we start talking about contacts and killing. Now, a soldier, because that's what Phantom Hawk was prior to, jumping head first and haphazardly end up being a superhero, being the reluctant hero that he is. He was a soldier first. And a soldier's job, or at least an infantryman's job, is to kill, to close with and destroy the enemy through fire and maneuver. It's right there in the infantryman's Bible. But we also, as we've advanced as a species and we've advanced in tactics and warfare, and when we start taking in the hearts and minds approach, we need to be selective. I mean, does the person need to die? Can we incapacitate him? Can I accomplish my mission with minimal casualties on my side or theirs? These are things that are being taught now in military leadership schools.
You make a really interesting point too, because the facilitated hero team has become a more common concept in gaming and otherwise. Like, here's the reason to put a team together. It's not just because we all happen to wear costumes and we all join up.
No, there's a need for it.
You tend to see it as the government. We have a harder time believing that heroes could get together and use their powers to operate without an organization behind them of some kind, because legally we just have a harder time buying that. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe obviously addresses that pretty strictly with the whole Sokovia Accords and the relationship they have with S.H.I.E.L.D. and the relationship they have with the government. This is a thing that comes up.
Yeah.
And, it's I think you talk about the influence of the media on the gameplay. We look at it and go, I mean, I did it. I'm like, I have organizations that say we're putting them together and we're authorizing them. And because we are putting them together and authorizing them, this includes authorizing them to go to war against, desperately bad enemies.
Why do I have a feeling I'm going to have to roll for that later on in your game? Like, do I have authorization from the governing body to go on this operation? I rolled
for that, dude. Call it in.
I rolled a 2.
The problem you got with the movies, though, is what they are doing is that it's almost like a, oh crap, how can we get rid of this villain so he doesn't appear in the sequel? So they have to kill all the villains at the end of the movie. Because like, oh, the Joker's dead at the end of Batman. Why is that? Well, we can't have him in Batman 2. We need a new villain. Oh, how can we explain where Zod's going to be in the next Superman movie? Where he's going to die at the end of Superman 1. Don't worry about it. So that, again, it's for a story plot point to move on to the next big bad guy. They kind of do it as well in that reason alone. Obviously, like you're saying about the Avengers and all the Chintari and all them dying, that's obviously insignificant. It's like the A-Team dropping people every 5 minutes. But the big bad will normally die purely for the sake of we don't need him in the sequel.
Interesting. I didn't realize that, Ed, but I see your point. It didn't occur to me. I was actually wondering why we keep killing off the main villains at the end of every movie.
Yeah. It seems to be like it's the easiest way of rounding off a story. Well, the bad guy's dead. Move on. So that's the way I see it.
Hey, I just want to take a second to welcome Fred Furtado, who just joined us. How you doing, Fred?
Hey, Fred. Walt, you muted him. Hang on. Somebody unmute Fred.
Working on it.
I have no control. Mr. Simpson, are you there?
Fred had some background noise going on. It was cutting out the audio. Fred, if you just click on your face and on the bottom, it'll bring up options. You can unmute yourself.
Hey,
there we go.
Hey, Fred, how you doing?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. How are you doing? Okay.
Fine. For having me.
Well, I just want to introduce you real fast. Fred does the Super Seeds column at RPG.net. He's been writing superhero story plots for how long now, Fred? 10 years?
8 years.
8 years. That's a while. And you have a Patreon now. People can sponsor your account.
Yeah, that's right. I created it because, I started Super Seeds because I think that's a problem with many people who run role-playing games, that you have too many ideas, not enough time to run them. And they were just bumping around in my mind. And one day, Shannon Appelkline, who's the columns editor at RPG.net, was asking for new column pitches. So I said, well, I said, I have these ideas. I can write a column about super seeds and characters, adventures, campaigns. And I said, well, that's fine. Send me your pitches. And at first, I thought I would have material for like 10 columns at most. But that was 8 years ago, and now it's on the 84th installment.
Wow!
And so I decided to start the Patreon because I wanted to do more with the column. I really love writing it, but I needed an excuse to dedicate more time and then create more content, like exclusive content, and do, I don't know, create PDFs with more material and original art. And for that, I'll need money. And then, like I said, an excuse to work more on it. And the Patreon model seemed like a good thing. For me, it's better than a Kickstarter, because a Kickstarter would make me like work more now for maybe like the campaign might work in the future, but that wasn't a guarantee. So I think that with Patreon, with people like giving me the support while I do the work, that's a better approach. So that's it in a nutshell.
We were just talking about the subject that you had proposed about, how the superhero media might have affected expectations at the gaming table. What's your take on that?
Oh. Sorry, can you repeat that question again?
Sorry, we were talking about the subject that you had proposed, with the upcoming Infinity War, if, all the superhero media, TV, movies, etc., if it had changed expectations of gamers.
Oh, yeah, I think that's a definite yes for that. I think the TV shows and the movies, they approach the superheroes with a bit more freedom. Sometimes, but they also challenge some of the genre assumptions, and they give you more flexibility if you want to run a game for example, someone was posting on RPGNet about a game based on the aftermath of Infinity War, and he wanted to have all these secondary characters and give them like pepper pots, and the girl who was an assistant to in Thor, the Darcy. So I don't think that's usually something that you see on the games. Usually we are more preoccupied with like the main characters, and you want to do the Avengers or the Justice League in your game. And the movies now, they give you some sort of material so you can explore other options. I don't know if everybody agrees with that, though.
Oh, we were talking about some of the differences, and I don't know if it's more morality or oh, anyone getting that echo effect on me?
I heard that, yeah. Okay.
Now we were talking about like how it's not a big deal to kill now for superheroes, but I can remember back in the 80s, you know, it was a big deal. Like even Wolverine, whose superpower is basically I stab things. I can remember, you know, X-Men making a big deal about we can never kill, we have to hold ourselves back. And I remember an episode of Secret Wars where, or an issue of Secret Wars where Cyclops, you know, hit Wolverine with his laser beams to keep him from, you know, fully stabbing somebody. And now it's, you know, watch a Wolverine movie and keep up with the body count.
Yeah, that actually annoys me a bit, because I think that the whole not killing is the main part of what it means to be a superhero. Even though I understand there are other subgenres and I like them as well, but sometimes I feel like it's like, oh, these are hard men making hard choices, and so they have to kill because there's no other way you can stop them, the villains. And I was actually glad in the first season of Daredevil when although he kind of beats people up a lot and he throws people from buildings, I thought he was trying not to kill them, which I appreciate. Although in the second season he kind of like doesn't do that. So
because ninjas,
I understand.
There's certain like groups of bad guys that apparently it's okay to kill. Like alien invaders, apparently you can kill them en masse. Ninjas, you can kill them en masse. Basically anything that's like, if they're all in the same uniform or the same costume, suddenly it becomes okay to kill them at will, and you're not going to get questioned on it. That's something that didn't
kind of Austin Powers. You know, you're not even wearing a name tag. You stood no chance.
Yeah. Also, the thing about Daredevil season 1 is if you compare it to the I never remember a instance in the comics where Daredevil threatened to stick a knife in somebody's eye to torture them to tell them the secret where the bad guy was. That was in Daredevil in the first series of Daredevil. It's like, oh, I'm going to stick this right in your face. You tell me where the bad guy is. Oh, yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing. But it's like that's even Frank Miller never went that far as I know in Daredevil. So even that is completely far removed from the original depiction of the character.
Yeah, but Daredevil would still snap limbs, break fingers to get rid. You know, so I mean, is it really that far of a jump? Even though we as fans of the book know that it's a bluff, the bad guy doesn't. You know, so I think it's just kind of like a way to kind of step it up towards modern audiences where, I mean, I could believe that this guy's just going to start snapping limbs. If you've never broken a limb, you know how effective that is. If someone's systematically breaking stuff that hurts, fingers, an arm, a wrist, you know, I'll tell you anything you want to know. That's why torture is really not that great of a information or intelligence gathering source. It can be, but you know, if you snap my wrist enough or you snap my limbs, I'm going to tell you I killed Kennedy. I'm going to tell you that I wear Wellman's underwear. I'm going to tell you that I like to dress up as whatever you want. I'm going to do whatever you want because I want it to stop.
I was just thinking,
quite the sordid past.
Unfortunately, I'm going to roll out here, but I want to leave. I was just thinking one of my favorite shows, and it's not great. It's not the best of the CWs, but I love Legends of Tomorrow because just there's lots of heroes. It's a team of heroes, or you know, and all that. But I mean, I still occasionally stop myself going, they just let Rory burn a bunch of guys to death. I mean, you don't really see it, but you know that's what just happened.
Well, because that's what he does.
That's what he does. He's like, I'm going to burn the pigs. And it's like, one,
So we're all cool with it now. We're all cool with him doing that.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's just Rory. You know, like,
oh, Rory.
That is setting bad expectations. I'm with you, Fred. Those are not expectations I necessarily want set at my table. I actually use Rory, by the way, as an example when I'm running a game. I'm like, by the way, Legends of Tomorrow, all those characters are fine except Rory. No, you're not burning the bad guys to death en masse. It's just not going to happen.
That's actually a problem sometimes at the table, because there's always someone who wants to be the anti-hero and he wants to be the guy who kills. And now they kind of have this license because you have shows like Arrow. Arrow, I mean, he falls off the wagon like every 2 episodes. He says, I won't kill anybody anymore. And then he goes. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, listen, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Please invite me back. Hopefully the car situation won't cause a problem again next time.
Good talking to you, Sean.
Take it easy, Sean.
Cheers.
Bye now.
Well, hey, you've been a little quiet so far. How do you feel about this issue?
I to be honest, I've not had to run many superhero campaigns since the movies have really kicked in. The only thing I can think of, in my opinion, if I run like say, I don't really watch the superhero movies, so if I run something myself, it's more affected by the comics than the movies. Players coming in may have different expectations, and that's the one thing I was going to say is that if nothing else, it's made superhero stuff so accessible to people that it's to go, okay, you've probably seen the films, you know this guy, this is the character you want to be. So you can bring in players who have never played the superhero game before, never read many, never seen comics, and probably know Spider-Man, Superman, off the thing. But then as soon as the movies come in, oh yeah, Ghost Rider. I mean, crikey, you would have think you'd know Ghost Rider or Iron Fist or these characters years and years ago. So that's the one benefit I think it's had.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, every once in a while, my mom, and I'm, over talking to her about family stuff, and she'll bring up the X-Men or something, and I'm like, okay, yeah, they're in the movies now. I guess mom knows about General Stryker and shit. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just it's such a weird thing. But again, like I've mentioned in the podcast before, that of course the one defining thing was everyone then has to dress in black as well, because everyone in the movie dresses in black. So
yeah, oh, go ahead, Fred.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, please, guest first. Go. People, they hear me talk all the time. You go.
No, there's the other thing though, that now it's so accessible, but it's the version that goes into the movies that is accessible. So it kind of imprints in people who wasn't a fan before. For example, the DC movies. So I don't particularly like them. And I don't like the way they portray the character, especially Superman. But now that's kind of the Superman who people know about, right? So that also creates kind of a dissonance when you're talking about the character. And you say, well, Superman wouldn't kill. But in the movie, he breaks Zod's neck. So yeah, that's one problem of that. But I'm with you guys. I think that it's great that we have so many movies and TV shows, because it does help, like when you're trying to sell a game, like sell in the sense that bringing people to the table, you can just like say, oh, it's like that movie in that scene, that's a guy.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, there's people who know about superhero stuff who couldn't care about it, especially some of the like we said, lesser-known characters like Iron Fist. Outside of the guys like people on this call who knew about Iron Fist up until there was a Netflix show. That's everywhere. Hey, Walt, speaking of quiet, you've been a little quiet so far this podcast. What are your thoughts?
Well, you're always going to get outside influence in your gaming table, because so many people are going to come from so many different backgrounds. We have when we test all the stuff for our game, we have this group who we call the Midnight Crew, and
Walt's game is Supers Revised Edition, available now at fine gaming stores and RPG Now. Sorry.
Excellent. Yeah, we have this group of people, and because of our different time zones and because of work schedules, we all get together. It's easier for us to get together overnight, and the you got a couple guys from America, a couple guys from New Zealand, you got some guys from Central and South America. It's really a fun crew, and so many different things going on from different areas and different perspectives. It's not just media. I mean, it's life experience. It's a little bit of everything. So I think the thing that's fun about these movies is it keeps pushing superheroes to the forefront. I mean, even if you're not watching them, it's really hard to see Chris Evans as Captain America standing up to Thanos and not get a little bit excited. It's hard to not only see the trailer for Venom and if you're a fan of that character, get excited, but even have a little bit of fun with it when you see somebody made a GIF of
I've made from that one screen grab of him smiling.
Oh, the googly eyes.
No, I've made others. I will send them to you. Not safe for work, just because. Well, I'm a dirty-minded infantryman, and they are gold.
Right, but I mean, it's hard not to get excited for these things.
Right.
And even if you're not a fan of the movies or the TV shows and stuff like that, it's one way to kind of, hey guys, did you see that trailer? And everybody screams out, yes, it was awesome, or no, I didn't like it. Even the guys who are like, I like Aid, right? Aid is infamous on this show for his dislike of the media surrounding comics, because they change a lot of the flavor and they take a lot of the fun from the comics to try and shoehorn it into what they believe audiences will tolerate. But even that, when you see a trailer for something like that, you can then turn it around and say, well, how would you do it? How do you want to play that type of thing? So and we saw that in Totally Awesome Force, the series that we did on the BAMF podcast, where Aid played the cockneyed sparrow. And you had Mike's character spouting fortune cookie lines, which for both those characters, I still get love letters. I get email from people saying we need to do another series with those characters because they were fantastic. People really connected with them. They were fun.
We should do that for our upcoming Twitch channel if we ever get that going on.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. Well, something else has changed gaming, I guess, is all the Twitch. I've read anecdotally that all the Twitch channels and Geek and Sundry and Harmon Quest change people's expectations of what a gaming session should be like, which I guess could be good and bad if you don't have the patience. On the other hand, I've been in some game sessions that were 4 hours of tedium punctuated by 15 minutes of fun.
Sounds like
one thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, the one thing I was going to say was that the movies themselves have definitely got nearer and nearer to the original comic sources. It's like when you if you think back to the Nolan Batman movies, it's like, okay, it's almost like he's a vigilante. It's just wearing a costume. It's a vigilante thing. Then you started getting a bit more, okay, well, Bane's in it, but he's really just a guy with a thing. Now you've got Thanos. That's, back in the day, you would never think you had Thanos. And like when they did the Fantastic Four, it's like, okay, right, we're going to have Galactus in the Fantastic Four too. He's a really big 20-foot guy. He's a gas in the movie because we can't do a 20-foot guy. That's crazy. Now you've got a big purple guy sitting on the throne with a gauntlet with gemstones in it. I mean, they are actually getting nearer to the source, which is pretty cool. And, I think DC are doing similar with Wonder Woman and Justice League, and Spider-Man Homecoming look really good as well. So that it's not quite so bad. The strange thing being that I found is that the TV series obviously tend to be a lot more grounded. Like Runaways tends to be I've not seen it, but I've only seen the trailers. Runaways looks like it. If you didn't see superheroes in it, it could just be a teen drama. And Shield's very similar. It's more spy influence than superhero influence. The Titans one's an odd one because the first picture they put out of Titans was Robin's costume. And you think, crikey, they've actually made Robin's costume. That's quite impressive. And then recently they had Starfire appear in some of the shots, and everyone going, that doesn't look anything like Starfire. What's this about? So it's quite a quandary why they are what they're going for. But again, that could just be, hey, this is Starfire in disguise. But everyone thinks it's what Starfire actually looks like in the series. So
I'm pretty sure they're going to CGI that actress.
I think so, because even Beast Boy in it is not green. Now, is he not going to be green? Is he just going to wear the coat? It just seems to be odd. But I can't believe they've got. We've seen Hawk and Dove and Robin, and their costumes are pretty spot on. And I can't believe they've just gone. Yeah, just put her just do the hair. That'd be fine. That's not going to be as far as it goes, I think.
There's actually a Titans live action TV show happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. You haven't seen the stills?
No, I'd seen some stills of a girl who was going to be Starfire, but I thought that was a movie. I didn't realize
it's a TV series. But again, that the shots they've shown of that seem to be like they're on a night out. So that's probably she could be like it could be on a holographic projection for Christ's sake. You don't know, but the shots they've actually released of Hawk and Dove and Robin look like costumes. They've actually got proper superhero costumes on.
Oh, okay.
So is that going to be a full-on superhero show? Or
yeah, on the DC network, I believe. When DC do their streaming service, it's going to be one of the first ones that comes on there, along with Young Justice Series 3.
When's that happening?
I think it's another one of the things. It'll be soon. I think it was supposed to launch in October, November, I believe, this year. But I don't know if that's a firm date or it's just like that's what people are expecting its launch because of all the buzz going around this stuff going on at the moment. So.
All right, I'm going to Google it. When does DC streaming launch? Hey, by the way, does anyone think Tom Hardy and does that work without Spider-Man?
No.
I don't know, man. The way they set it up, it could. I mean,
I don't know.
It's a trailer. It's hard to gauge, but what they're setting up, it could work.
Okay.
They're going for an anti-hero thing, right? Not a straight-up villain.
They're basing it off the Lethal Protector storyline, which was right after Eddie left New York and went to San Francisco. And he had the heart-to-heart with the symbiote about, let's not do as much collateral damage as we need to. Let's just focus on bad people, and the symbiote agreed.
I'm intrigued. The one with that one again, I'm intrigued to see if you watch the trailer. There's not a lot of him actually as full-on Venom. He's just got like the little symbiote stuff sticking out of him. I reckon there'll be a lot of him running around just with no powers on display until he actually uses them, rather than being in costume quite a lot. And they were saying on one of the forums who's actually the bad guy in this film. If Carnage isn't in there somewhere, or at least alluded to at some point, I'll be very, very surprised.
Well, it looks in the trailer like somebody else was infected by the symbiote. So
because there's two jars, and I think, well, if they don't say, "Oh, Carnage," if they don't, because he needs someone to kick the crap out of. Simple as that. And if it's not going to be Spidey, who's it going to be? It's going to have to be an evil version of Venom, and that's Carnage. So.
Could be. So DC streaming service, all I can find is fourth quarter of 2018. So
yeah.
Apparently it will. Huh?
Oh, yeah, another streaming service.
Oh yeah.
DC streaming. That's where you're gonna have the Titans show, various cartoons. There's gonna be a Harley Quinn animated show, Titans, the Young Justice season 3, and apparently all the Lois and Clark you ever wanted to watch.
One episode.
Dean Cain this weekend, actually.
You're meeting Dean Cain this weekend?
Yep, at the South Texas Comic-Con down here in McAllen, Texas.
Oh, cool. Hey, if you see him, he owes me $5. Could you hit him up for that?
I'm a better shot than him, so yeah, I'll grab it.
Cool. All right. Well, did we cut you off in the middle of a thought?
Nope, not at all. But yeah, so many of these trailers are really sparking the imagination, and you're seeing that in if you look on the various forums, like you can look on the Supers forum, you can look on the Ronin Army forum. You can all these different forums that are out there that are covering superhero stuff. You can look on those forums and you just see the enthusiasm that is getting on the table right now. I mean, one of the recently I've fallen in love with this one book series, and a couple of the fans of the series through one of the message boards said, hey, you do role-playing games. Have you approached them yet? And it's one of those things where you're just like, we were like, wow, even books, old school paper, just sit down and carve out an afternoon, is just pushing the boundaries of what we like at the table, and can influence how the dice roll. So there's a lot of ways that that people are getting excited right now, which is kind of cool.
To say, you're definitely right about the forums, because if you go into like RPG Net or whatever, people are asking, okay, how do I recreate this stuff from Infinity Wars? How do I recreate this stuff from Daredevil? No one's saying, how do I recreate the alternate Batman from Metal Comics? That's the comics never mentioned. It's always the movies every single time. Oh, I've just seen Venom Craig. How do I make that character? So yeah,
I like comics more than the average guy, Ed. I don't want to say how much I spend every month, but I looked at the metal stuff and I was like, nah, that's cool. I'm just going to pass on this. Although I think maybe it sounds like, I know you've been reading, I think Walt has too.
Yeah, you could have got away with, to be honest, you could have got away with just reading the core 6 books and possibly the Batman Lost Hawkman one, and not the additional ones, because they were pretty much self-contained and just like an origin of, hey, this is the Green Lantern Batman, and it became this because it didn't really matter. It made no difference to the storyline, because it's just like, oh, he got punched in the face in issue 3. Okay, that's his bit over and done with. So it was just another excuse to print another book, in my opinion.
You know, one thing I like about all these movies and shows is that my personal motto is that superpowers improve everything, right? And I try to do that sometimes in Super Seeds. So there was a time I was binging on Burn Notice. I don't know if you guys know that show.
Oh yeah,
the one with
Michael Weston is God.
Yeah. And so I thought, and I remember I was watching this episode in the 3rd season, and I said, "Wow, this show is cool. What would make it even better? I know, superpowers." And then I wrote a Super Series where I adapted the premise of Burn Notice to a superhero world. And I think that now, with all these shows and all this media, that there's a lot of things that can happen now, like superpowers and superheroes will kind of ooze into other media, and then we might see different shows or different movies which have a superpowered premise, but may not be exactly about superheroes.
Yeah, there's definitely a mix of like other genres creeping into other like Winter Soldier seems to be more of a spy kind of thing. If they ever get around to making a Black Widow movie, that'll be more on the espionage side. And hey, we're taking Thanos on. So yeah, there definitely seems to be a lot of cross pollination in genres on the movies.
Yeah, you see that especially with the Marvel films, where every film has its own take on certain things, like Ant-Man the heist film, Captain America the political thriller. That
was a spy movie, man, and it was awesome.
Right.
So how would you characterize if we're saying Ant-Man's a heist movie, and I'm with you on that one, Captain America's political thriller, maybe the first Captain America is World War II movie. Where would you put Black Panther?
Oh, Black Panther. Black Panther is definitely a fantasy. Not fantasy as in, oh, you know what I would love to see? It's fantasy as in a fantastic premise, like Lord of the Rings or even like the Thor movies. It's the idea that we can rise above our petty issues and work together as a people despite our differences. Even though we look the same on the outside, these subtle differences can sometimes separate people, and we saw that with oh god, I'm gonna blank on his name, and I loved him so much in the movie, the guy who was Man-Ape. Oh my god, he was awesome. But you had that split in the tribes when Black Panther took the crown. And later on, they come together for a mutual benefit, and they manage a grudging respect of each other, and all of this is set upon a mystical hidden kingdom. It's Atlantis without being under the ocean. It's an advanced civilization where on the outside, it's this big united front, but on the inside, they have to work hard to overcome their differences to work together. So
I wish it wasn't. It was a middle of the pack Marvel movie for me, man. And I don't know, maybe I went in there just because of all the hype, like, man, it's the greatest Marvel movie, and I was just going in there expecting so much. I don't know. I might have to give it another watch, but like when I was watching, I'm like, Really? This is what everyone's excited about?
It was kind of,
watch Doctor Strange because that was a hell of a lot better.
it was kind of hyped as like, you know, the greatest movie of this century kind of thing. But I haven't seen it yet myself. I'm waiting for it on streaming.
Yeah,
The
I would.
Oh,
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with waiting for it streaming. That's how good it is.
I was going to say, the interesting thing, what they've managed to do is they have managed to get all those disparate genres together to make Infinity War. It's like, you know, back again, the early stuff was grounded in reality. So you had Captain America, World War II, but he's a superhero. Then obviously when the Avengers come along, you've aliens in it. Okay, now we've got Thor and stuff. We can start going a bit further and further. Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, when they probably wrote the first Captain America movie or even the Iron Man movie, could they ever see Guardians of the Galaxy and Iron Man coming together? Probably, you know, it's like, well, that might be the plan, but are people going to buy a talking raccoon in an Iron Man movie? Oh my Christ, it's actually happened. It's in Infinity War. So they've actually done a really good job in like introducing like magic and stuff from Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and obviously Black Panther and all this kind of stuff in. They've actually done a pretty decent job of recreating a majority of the Marvel universe in movie form without kind of just dumbing it down and just going, well, they've all got the same names of the characters, but they're just running around wearing combat gear and knocking the crap out of each other. So they've done a good job in that respect.
I like Black Panther. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I liked it. I thought it was like an Afrofuturist piece and was really good. I mean, I thought it was better than Doctor Strange, sorry. But, and I liked Doctor Strange. And I liked it. And the great thing about it is that if you compare it with Black Lightning, the TV series from DC, they're both great, but they are really like different niches. But they still approach the same issues, like social issues, and but from completely different points of view. And the only thing I didn't like about Black Panther was that at the end he didn't like ended monarchy in Wakanda, instituted a constitutional democracy. I think it's enough time that we got rid of the kings in superhero comics.
Yeah, that I could see that happening. That seems that would be a reasonable conclusion, right? You know, it's 2018. Monarchies haven't been going that great for a long time, right?
I'm sorry. As a proud Britishman, like I say, I can't get rid of the monarchy. Wait, we've got a royal wedding coming up, for Christ's sake. I mean, this is, you know, we can't get rid of them now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I'm looking at your Patreon, Fred. It looks like people are sponsoring the Super Seeds column, but also if they become your patron, they get something else. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, right. So I have different tiers of contributions, and the basic one is $1, where you get access to the patron-only content, like the super extras, which is additional material that I thought of during the column or afterwards, but there wasn't enough time or there wasn't enough space to put it in. And so I just write it up and then I add there. And the following tiers, you get what I call expansions, where you say, oh, I like this part of this seed. Can you write something more about it? And then I create more material based on the suggestions of the patron. And it increases in size according to the tier that you choose. And I have the goals. Now my last goal is the $35 one. And when we hit it, then I start looking at doing all that material I was talking about first, like the PDFs and the original art. And let's see, I hope we only like, I think, $3 short of that goal. So I hope that people will
I'm a patron myself. Now, you're writing in both English and, is that Portuguese? Or English and
yeah,
Spanish?
that's right.
Okay.
I'm from Brazil, so yeah, my native language is Portuguese, but I'm writing the column in English because it's for RPGNet. So, but I didn't want to like leave out all the people in Brazil that like my work or my friends or my colleagues. So I always post like in English and Portuguese. And in the future, if I get the goal for the expanded material, my idea is to do like bilingual source books or PDFs. So you have an English one, and then you have the Portuguese parts as well. And if I find other people who wants to translate and I can pay them with the money I get from the Patreon, that's fine as well. I wouldn't mind seeing it in other languages like Spanish, French, German, Arabic, whatever.
Everything sounds more metal in German.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, guys, I need to wrap up and get back to my mundane day job. Do we have any closing thoughts before we wrap things up here?
I think we pretty much smashed this into the ground.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, Walt, Fred, Nick, Aid, thanks for coming out, guys. Appreciate it. Make sure.
Thank you for having me.
Make sure to check out Fred. Thank you for being here. Go to Patreon, Patreon, and do a search for Fred Furtado. You can find Fred there. Hit Apogee Comics and check out Nick. And
also, shameless plug real quick.
Yeah.
Phantom Hawk reboot issue 1 Kickstarter May 2nd. It launches.
Oh, that's real soon.
Yeah, real soon, like right around the corner. Like,
yeah.
I got a convention this weekend, South Texas Comic Con, for you listeners out there in the Rio Grande Valley area or just Texas Joe. You guys want to make a trip down, come see me. I got panels all 3 days. One of them's dealing with how to draw superheroes. The other one's how to fund your Kickstarter, which is all stuff I stole from Walt. And then, the last one is Veterans in Comics, it's a personal story of me incorporating my artwork and dealing with PTSD and trying to use that instead of being reliant on some sort of pharmaceutical narcotic to make you fucking crazy. So I'm always out there trying to help the vet community. So on Sunday, that's when I'm doing that. But yeah, you go to my Twitter, my Facebook, Apogee Comics, and you'll have all the information you can possibly handle. Hope to see you there.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right.
Can I do a quick plug as well?
Fred, go for it. Yes.
Yeah, no, just if people want to see the work, all the columns, all the Super Seeds columns are available for free at RPGNet. The name of the column is Super Seeds, so you can check out my work and see if you would like to contribute. Then you can find me at Patreon at patreon.com/superseeds.
Cool. Sounds good. Are those your dogs, Walt?
Nope, not mine.
Oh, okay.
Not mine.
I think that might be Nick's.
What's that? Oh, it's my doorbell. Sorry. 100 pages of Bengali 2 or 100 copies of Bengali 2 just showed up at my door. So.
Oh, nice. Cool. All right.
Nice.
I got to get back to it. Thanks again to everybody, and we will catch you next time on the BAMF podcast.
Cheers.
All right. Bye.
Deuces.